Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda,
And I'm Jake Bennett.
and welcome to episode 89 of the North Meet South web podcast.
Bennett. Hey everyone, how are you out there in user listener land? So good to see you, hear you, be with you. Glad you're still listening, all of you faithful followers. All of you, all 10 of you.
All of the
100
above. We
maybe.
finally hit double digits. We finally got to 10.
We did. We finally got to 10 folks. We were at episode 89, so 90 next, and then we're going to hit 100 this year.
Yeah, it's wild that we've managed to stick at it. Obviously,
Let's go back to the roots here.
Down. Our cadence slowed down a little bit.
It did. It used to be so back when your name was like Adactio Wada 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 Yatsu something, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it was. What was it?
Ayatstudi.
Ayatstudi. I still don't know. Still don't know what that was. I could never pronounce it or remember it. And you changed it on the advice of Matt Stauffer, which thank you, Matt. Very good advice. But you had a package out there, a nullable strings package that I was a big fan of and used all the time. And somehow met you on Twitter, like, hey, dude, like, this is a great package. Way to go. Nice job. This is awesome. I use it all the time. They should really pull this into core, which they eventually did. But we became fast friends on Twitter. And then you were like, hey, mate, I'm going to be coming to Laracon this year. We should do a podcast before I get there. Like, sounds like a great idea. Let's definitely do that. And the first episode, it was terrible. I was nervous, which is so funny.
Yeah. It is funny going back and listening now. And
I can't do it. I can't do it going back. I think we talked about like Sandy Metz. I can't remember what it was. I don't know what it was.
I have to go back and listen. But it's funny. I've going back to the episode with the little blue snowball that I had at the time, and remembering how great we thought it sounded, and then listening to the recording and going, actually, that's not quite so
Professional.
Good. And, the room echo and all of that, and now,
man,
we're still doing the same nonsense, but we're doing it with better quality equipment.
Exactly. We're convincing people that we know what we're talking about just because of the sound equipment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they're not actually fooled, but those were the days back then. Yep. And then that was back when we actually got to hang out at least once a year. And now it's been a while, and so we haven't got to hang out as much recently.
and coronaviruses and all kinds of wild stuff. Life,
14 and a half hour time differences. Yep.
Yeah. So
new jobs, all sorts of craziness.
New jobs. Yeah. That was this week. Started on Monday, and I'm 1 week into it, and I actually got to write some code on Friday.
Nice. Awesome.
I did end up having to do tech support this week, which was fun. I started on Monday. They wanted to go through training and stuff, and then have me on the phones by sort of mid-Thursday, and by mid-Tuesday I was already on the phones, kind of making stuff up as I went along. Because number one, I haven't done tech support for about 10 years, 12 years, no, maybe more. When did I? 2006, 14, 15 years. It's been a while since I've done any tech support, and certainly not for this type of stuff. So I'm working for a voice provider now. So before I was working for an internet provider, now I'm working for a voice provider. So I have no experience.
A little bit different.
Yeah, no experience in voice at all. And so it was.
And by voice, you mean like phone? Is it a phone provider?
Yeah, voice over IP.
Yeah?
So we do hosted PBX systems and things like that. Virtual fax, SMS. Think like a Nexmo or a Twilio, but like a smaller scale kind of thing. So they've been around for 10, 12 years, but focused within Australia, and they're a much smaller team. They don't have the weight of Vonage behind them like Nexmo does.
Right.
So, but it's a good bootstrap business. Just ticking along, keeping their customers happy. It's wild how efficient they are on the phones and tickets and stuff. And every time I open a support ticket to look at it, someone else is in there straight away. And every time a call comes in and I get myself ready to take it. Someone's, we were trying to, I was like having people kind of teaching me the ropes and things like that at the beginning of the week. And so they're like, okay, here comes the call. So I'm going to answer the call and it's gone. Someone else has picked it up kind of thing. By the time they'd explained what they wanted me to do and that
All right,
kind of stuff,
here's
someone else
you're
had
gonna
picked the phone
press
up.
you're gonna press the number 8 here, and then that's gonna okay. All right,
Yep.
well, next one.
Never mind.
All
Yeah,
right, now
that's
we're
right.
gonna press the number 8. And all
Yeah.
right, we'll get the next one. When the next one comes in, I'm pressing the number 8. I'm not gonna explain it to you. 8, boom, there we go.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
now we're on the call.
Yep. So it's
Gotcha.
the other person that I was learning from would answer the call, and then we've got this call spying feature, so I can drop in on the call
Nice,
so that
sure.
the person that I'm spying on can hear me, and we can talk to each other. But the person that called in can't hear me. They can only hear the agent. So that was a good way to sort of like, do the screen share, see what they were saying, hear what they were saying, and then half a day later I was on the phones doing the same thing. And I think it's being older and more experienced. You don't really get nervous on the phone as much. You introduce yourself. You say, where are you? Where have you called? Who you are? How can I help you? And then they tell you, and then suddenly you don't know what you're talking about, and you just say, "Well, I've just started working here 2 days ago, so you just have to bear with me." And after that, it's pretty much just working your way through it. Tech
For
support,
sure. And people are pretty patient when it comes down to that. Yeah.
But tech support in this sort of limited period of time has kind of been. Let me just Google that for you.
Yeah.
There's been that kind of stuff where it's like, oh, I don't really know how to do this. It's like, well, if you go to our website and you search for this in the knowledge base, you will find the answers to all of it. And
do they have pretty good docs?
Yeah, they've got really comprehensive documentation across of all of the stuff. So there's a big push, from this business to make sure that we're solving customer issues on the first call, so that they're not calling back, so they're not tying up support, they're not, so that they're getting a really good experience. And so a lot of that stems from having documentation. And a lot of the customers are pretty well trained. So when they call up because we're a phone provider, the phone system hooks into our CRM. And so when you pull up the account, it will verify the customer based on the call that you are on at that moment. So if you called me from a number that was on your account, it would let me into your account straight away, because the understanding is that if you're calling like from a number that's listed on the account, that you are authorized to see that account. And if you're not, then the customer has to log into their portal and they give you like a 2-factor auth code. So they have like a 5-digit number that is randomized every time they go in there. And so they have to read it out, and then I have to type it in. And then as long as the two numbers match up, then I can get into the account and things like that. So, there's
okay, that makes sense. So like you can't just barge into their account without their authorization either.
That's right. Yeah. So,
nice.
So
you couldn't give them any information even if you wanted to. There's nothing you could do. It's like, hey man, listen, I can't help you out.
Correct. If they say, I'm looking at this extension, or this number's not whatever, if they're not logged into their customer portal and able to give me that verification code, I can't even see their account. So I just look.
That's smart, because it prevents you from being social engineered, right? Like you can't get like, hey, well, yeah, I was on the account of like my boss, and like he authorized this for me, and like I talked to Jenny last week, and she told me that I could whatever. Oh, okay, let me just get it in for you. Okay, that makes sense. They can't do that. They actually have to have authorization.
Yeah. So that's that's really nice. But there's a big push, for automation to help customers out, to all that kind of stuff. There is the UI looks a bit dated, but it is functional.
Bootstrap?
It's not Bootstrap. It's
really?
It's just
refreshing.
Yeah, it's I guess it's fairly custom. I haven't seen any of the code beyond what I've seen in the browser, so I was not allowed.
Yeah, I'm pretty forgiving of UI. Like even I don't know, if it's just straight Bootstrap, it makes me want to puke. But if it's not like, if it's like something custom, even if it looks worse than Bootstrap almost, I'm semi okay with it, I guess. I don't know why this like big aversion to Bootstrap. Now, to be fair, like we use Bootstrap in a lot of our old stuff too, but it's like a fairly customized version of Bootstrap. But like just like straight up plain Bootstrap makes me ill. Like when people just like slap that on there, I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, like you didn't even try at
Didn't even
all,
try.
like
I
at
mean,
all.
the dream of Bootstrap was always that here is your scaffolding and go and, and there are good, well-designed Bootstrap sites out there, but the trouble is most people, like it was used by developers to just quickly spin something up and then
Yep.
it never got past that. So and because it provided you so much out of the box, it was always the same forms, the same buttons, the same, and you could tell as soon as you saw a Bootstrap
Yeah.
site, the same nav bar, right? So
Yep.
no,
Yep.
this is all custom. It's not a default thing, but it looks a bit like it's not beautiful by any stretch, but it's not ugly either.
Sure.
And it's functional and it's fairly intuitive, so customers can get in and find their way around things, and everything kind of works. The problem with the PBX is there's so many different ways to achieve the same outcome. So you could have
Yeah.
an IVR, like an automated attendant. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for that.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
then you could put a time switch in front of that like from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. you hit the IVR, and from 5 p.m. until 9 a.m. then you go to the out of hours voicemail. Or there's ring groups, which are different again. You take 2 or 3 agents and you put them into a ring group, and you could direct the number directly to that group, which goes outside of the IVR. And I did actually have one customer, I think on Thursday or Friday, they're like, have you got a document with a high level overview of everything that you can do? I'm like, well, depends on what you're trying to achieve, because there's no one way to do this kind of stuff, which means that if you're trying to achieve a certain thing, there might be 3 different ways of doing it. There might be
At least.
the
Yeah.
best way to do it, but yeah. And then one of the other agents sent me like a mind map of all of the different support stuff, and it's just like a spider web of infinite possibilities, essentially. So
That's interesting.
yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff, but for the most part, like people just want either an IVR or they just want their phone to ring three different handsets at the business. Like they don't need an IVR. It's just a small business. They've got 3 phones, and when you call 1-800 my business, they want all 3 of those phones to ring, and someone will answer it.
Yeah. So we've got like a pretty complex. So we are in the midst of switching phone systems, which is interesting that you're just kind of like coming into this job, because what you're talking about, this IVR, has been the biggest headache in the switch for us. We have rather complicated inbound rules. And so it's sort of like, I think the flow that we have right now is it rings, and the first thing it does is it checks to see if we're open or not. If we're not open, like it checks to see, like, number one, is it within business hours, or is it a holiday that we've marked as a day that we're out of office?
Yeah.
And if it is, then it transfers it straight to voicemail. If it's if we're closed, then it transfers straight to voicemail. If we're open, then it tries to do a lookup, right? So it says, look at the phone number, see if it matches any of the files in our contacts, and then if it is, try and find the group that contact is listed with, and then direct that to that transfer group, right? And then that rings a bunch of people, whoever picks it up first, kind of thing. If that doesn't match, then it drops them into a phone tree where it says, here's the, an IVR, basically what you're talking about. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also has to listen for multi-digit extensions, because somebody could be entering like a 4-digit extension, like 3199.
Yep.
If they have to 3199, then you have to ignore the 3, because they're not trying to dial 3 on the phone tree. They're trying to dial the extension. So you have to like pause for a second. It almost reminds me of how, like, with touch devices on mobile, like there's that little delay, because they're trying to see if you're double tapping, or are you tapping and dragging, or what are you doing, right? So it's like you can't just like take that first digit press. You have to like take the digit press and then wait for like a second.
Yeah.
And then, are they pressing more digits? No. Okay. Then direct them. So it's quite complicated. There's a lot of stuff. And then it's like, how do you transfer to voicemails? Well, you can transfer to voicemail. You can't transfer to a voicemail if somebody isn't available on that line. No, it's a mess. It's a mess. There's a lot of stuff. So anyway, pretty much with ours, what we had to do is we basically had to say, okay, here's the flow chart. Can you build this for us? We will pay you to build this for us. And then their team's like, yes, we'll build that for you.
Yeah.
Like, well, we have the ability to kind of like drag and drop and edit and whatever. But like you're saying, there's so many different ways to accomplish. So like you get on the phone with them, they're like, okay, well, you could do that, but this is how you'd want to do that. And it's like, I don't understand any of that. Can you just do it? So
yeah,
you get pretty deep in the weeds pretty quick on that stuff.
Yeah. So the good thing about being able to like directly hook into the customer that's calling is once you pull up their account, you can log into their customer portal. And so it's very easy to step them through. So you ask them, are you in the customer portal? We're going to step through it all. And then you can go and see exactly what they're seeing and guide them through it. A lot of it is sort of directing them and holding their hand through the customer portal so they get the feel for it so that they can use that in future
Yeah.
and sort of self-serve, which is the whole point of having the system there in place, is to self-serve it. And then in some scenarios that's not possible, so we've got TeamViewer and we can do the remote support on their machine so they can see what we're stepping them through, and then we kind of gently nudge them towards the support guides. And it's like, if you need help with this specifically, there's documentation here. So it was a good experience. I was hesitant to do it, but at the same time I kind of understood why. And I think as a developer, even a senior developer, even someone that's been programming for a long time, going into a service business like that and sitting on the phones and working with actual customers, it helps you to get an understanding of the business, of the kinds of customers that you have, attract, that kind of stuff, as well as seeing firsthand what the customers are seeing with our customer portal, but also what our staff are seeing with our internal CRM, and sort of understanding, I guess, the pain points that they might experience or the things that they see. When you log into this thing, it's essentially everything on one page. So it's the customer details, then it's the customer contacts, like in one column, and then in the middle column there's the phone numbers, the plans that they've got, like the subscriptions that they've got, all of the, all of this stuff is just all in one screen. There's no tabs, there's no panels, there's no, like, it's just all there.
Yeah.
And so my first thought was, well, I get that if you wanted to see something, you could just like scroll, but at the same time, what is the stuff that you're going to be looking at most often? And let's think about servicing that to the top. Like the customer details should be front and center. There's and there's not really any view. Like there's no show endpoint here. It's all just a giant collection of edit forms, like all on one page, and they will just post somewhere. It's all Ajax, if that's any consolation. Like each sort of
it doesn't like
section
refresh
of the
page every time.
Yeah, so it all kind of does that. There's it was
like
good.
There's actually like some of those things, like there's actually value in that. Like instead of having to navigate like 5 panels and then like find the thing and then update it, it's like, I know it's like sort of, it seems to go against like my sensibilities of like, no, these should be organized in their boxes. And it's like sometimes, but other times it's just way more efficient to just have it there. You know what I mean? So yeah, but I think like to your point of like what you're saying of like getting on the phone, whatever, you're spot on with that. Like it keeps you, even as like the senior developer, it keeps you with like your finger on the pulse of like what's actually happening. Because at the end of the day, like you can make all the pretty fancy stuff you want, but if you're actually not serving the needs of either your customer or your internal client, your internal customers, which are your employees, then you're kind of wasting time, right? I know that a good example of this was the president of our company. When he was still kind of in the office and stuff. For the last couple of years, he's sort of been out a little bit, but he's enjoying like early retirement pretty much. But he would come in and like a couple times a week, he would go take his laptop and he'd go sit on the collection floor and he would take phone calls. Like the president of the company would take the phone calls because like he started it from the ground up, right? Like he initially was the person doing that. Right. So he would go sit down there with those people. He would listen to the people who were on the phones, their talk off, like how are they doing to get money? Like they could listen to him, how he was talking off money or whatever. Right. Like it was really cool. So like he was the president, but he could still do the job. Right. So number one, it like gained him a lot of respect because like the people who were there were like, wow, this guy can still do the job that we're doing. And he was relatable. And like he could then take what he's learning and what he's hearing from the people who he's talking to on the phone or the people who he's hearing on our floor talking to people on the phone and, make adjustments. So I think it does a lot of stuff. Like you're going to be able to meet the people who you're servicing right away, like your team members. You're going to get a feel for what are the common problems that people on the phone that are calling in are having. Yeah, I think it's awesome. Like I can't think of really a better way to kind of jump right in and kind of get your feet wet with the business. So
Yeah.
kudos for the people who are in management there. I think that's a smart move.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good being a small business because everyone's really tight knit.
Yeah.
Well, I say everyone's tight knit. Obviously, I am based a 2.5-ish hour flight, 2.5 plus an hour and a half or so of driving. If I go, I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to get up there to meet everyone. It's a bit tricky to leave poor Rhiannon at home.
Where is it at? What
So they're in Toowoomba, which is about an hour and a half west of Brisbane, which is in Queensland.
Queensland. That's what I was looking for. I wanted to know what Australian state it was in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Say the name of the town again, or the city?
Toowoomba.
Toowoomba. That's a fun name.
Towwomba. Toowoomba.
Towomba.
Yeah, it's fun. It's even fun to spell.
That's like Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Like MISSISSIPPI. It's like a fun thing you learn when you're a kid, and Toowoomba is probably the same in Australia. TOOWOMBA. Wow,
yeah,
that's a weird one.
up in the sort of northern areas, the northeastern parts of Australia. There's some fun names. There's like
are those like Aboriginal names?
I believe so. Gosh, I don't want to speak out of turn, but yeah, I believe Toowoomba is. There's like places like Murwillumbah, and which I won't even try and spell.
That reminds me of Wisconsin. I went to college up in Wisconsin, and there's all sorts of crazy names up there, and they're all Native American names, like tribes and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like Milwaukee, Waukesha. Those are the ones. Those are the two that come to mind. Waukesha. That was a weird one.
Waukesha.
But Milwaukee, like everybody knows the name Milwaukee, but like it's an odd name, Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sheboygan.
Sheboygan. Yeah, there's some funny ones. Like it's funny when you say that. Like when I used to see, Arkansas, and it's like Arkansas. Nope.
Yeah,
Arkansas.
exactly. I showed Graham a meme the other day about that. It's like, why is this Kansas and this is not Arkansas?
Yeah.
America, explain. You've
why
seen
is
that
this?
one? It's funny.
Why is this Arkansas, but this is Kansas? Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So hey, dude, I'm glad to hear the job is going well. That's really cool.
Yeah, I didn't do any program until Friday, and it was kind of like programming around still answering the phone. So it was like maximum levels of interruption, which was fun. My task was to build a application to monitor SSL certificate expiration. If that sounds like something.
You're like, I know a program that does this actually.
I'm like, why don't we just use this?
Number of them.
And it was like, no, just build it. So I built it, and then I was yelled at for not just having like a single index.php file that did everything. I'm like,
no way.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. Well, you could have just done.
They were like,
this
this is
with
too
one
complicated.
File. Yeah. I was sent a screenshot of a Windows Explorer showing how many files were inside my app directory.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Yeah.
That is really funny. So like, are they like, you know what, like you just brought way too much boilerplate to this thing. It was a really simple problem you could have solved with just PHP. Solve it with PHP.
Probably, yeah.
Is that what we're saying? Like, is that kind of their idea?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it's interesting because like that's never my approach really anymore. Like my approach right now is just anything, spin up a Laravel app. It's like, okay, but I mean, they may be right. Maybe that is a little bit sometimes, depending on the problem, right? It's like, do you really need to have a whole install like that you have to upgrade every time that there's a Laravel upgrade, or you have package dependence, all that stuff? I don't know. Maybe there's some truth to that.
Did you want me to spend a day figuring out how to fetch and parse an SSL certificate or a TLS certificate, or did you want me to just build a complete application that you could add a site to, and it would just do all of that, and then it will schedule a check every day? So this is kind of the balance, and like I totally get it.
That's totally fair, though. What you're saying is fair too.
That you and I and most of us as Laravel developers, or even not even as Laravel developers, but as modern PHP developers, we would almost always reach for Composer, and whether it's
100%.
whether it's Laravel or whether it's just a plain PHP package, we would almost always reach for that. We would compose a create project, we would git init, and we would go from there, and we would pull in some package to do the thing that we need to do.
100%. Absolutely.
So
because the code has already been written. People have already solved this problem.
And I don't need to, as I said, I don't need to go and figure out how to fetch a URL. And you know what this does? this Sparsy package, of course, that I used was to, what does it do? It gets a URL. Like the URL is an object. I mean, I think Frake's out of control here doing all of this stuff, but then it just like downloads the certificate using, I don't know, what does it use? Get certificates, this fetch certificate. Let's just dive some code here. New URL, get host name. Then it does a stream context create and creates a stream socket client and connects using SSL to a thing. And then it fetches from the socket. So like, I mean, I guess I could have figured that out, but then, you know, I'm writing all of this.
I mean, like for what?
Totally. It's 200 lines of PHP, but I could figure it out eventually, and then I've got to go and parse it all out, or I could just pull in this package. And the thing is, this is only looking at the certificate. It doesn't look at like the certificate chain and making sure that all the intermediaries are valid and things like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm sure.
And also, again, like, how do you add a new one? Like,
Yeah.
well, do you want an interface, or do you want whoever's adding them to just literally chuck them in a new database? And then, like, you have no type protection or anything like that on that. Like, there's no validation rules when you're just chucking it into a database. So somebody screws it all up, and now it can't run because the third one is wrong. So all the ones after that are wrong. You know what I mean? It's like whatever. There's just all that stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, as I said, I totally get it. The perspective of, you know, why pull it all in, but I think we are far enough down the road that we wouldn't do. Like if you're using Java, you wouldn't write most of this stuff. There'd be something, or Ruby, you'd pull in a gem to do it, or JavaScript, you'd pull in 1,600 different npm packages, or Python, you'd pull in something, you know, with pip.
Yeah,
we're far enough down the road where these things are all efficient, and the fact that you've got 10,000 files or whatever just sitting there, most of them are not being used. If they're not being used, then they're not being loaded. Disk space is cheap. Hard drives are fast. File
developer time is
quick.
The most expensive thing that you're going to pay for, pretty much, right?
So, you know, if I can knock this whole thing out in a couple of hours, then
I guess that is the trade-off. Then that's sort of like the explanation, right? Is it's like, okay, well, what's cheaper, right? To make it so that the developer time is a day as opposed to a week, or, you know what I mean? I guess that there is ongoing maintenance costs because whatever, Laravel, but also there is also the fact that you will be able to maintain it future moving forward because of Laravel, right? And Composer. So,
yeah,
you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that went well though. So did you use like Nova or anything in the back end to give you a quick admin UI, or just
no? It's literally
Livewire,
just a Livewire component.
Nice.
I used Livewire. Yeah, grab that, fetch it, dispatch a job to fetch the certificate immediately, fire an event back to update the index list, and yeah, Bob's your mother's brother. Worked well. It looks nice.
Bob's your uncle.
The trickiest part was getting the modal that, like, when you click on it, it shows the most recent check details for the certificate.
Yeah. Did you do Alpine with that?
Yep. Used Alpine. Used Entangle.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
It took me a little while for it to click that if you use the like the Entangle blade directive, that you don't have to then interface with Livewire, like for a modal to show and hide it. You just have like in your X data object, you'd have open equals @entangle shown, right? Or visible, or whatever your property is.
And then in your Livewire component, you just put shown true or false?
Yep. So you default that property in your Livewire component to false, and then
right. Okay.
And then, well, in this instance, probably didn't even need to use Livewire, but you can entangle. And so from then on, all of your manipulation for that shown variable can just be with Alpine on the data object. So instead of like $wire.set shown false, shown comma false, you could just update the JavaScript property shown. That would happen in the browser. And once that happens, then Alpine would handle sending the post back to Livewire to then to, you know, synchronize the state with the backend. So the entangle
basically allows you to either update it from the PHP side or the JavaScript side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're updating it from the PHP side, like Livewire side, like, yeah, you would, if that's the only spot you're updating it, then you wouldn't need to use entangle. But if you're updating it ever on the JavaScript side, which what I would assume is that you may end up closing it on the JavaScript side before, you know, like it's sort of be faster.
So it happens quicker, yeah. Otherwise, you've got to send the post and then wait for it. Like you could forego the Alpine, wrap it in like a dollar wire dot
Sure.
toggle, and it would send a post and it would update, and then you could just add an if dollar shown in your blade component, and like that would work. It's
Yeah.
probably, rather than having both things, it's probably a bit nicer, I suppose.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm still trying to one of our developers. I'm trying to kind of get him on the Livewire train. I'm like, hey, this is awesome. Like, what you did here is really, really good. This is great. However, just as like a aside here, I noticed that you have a controller with invoke because there's only one thing that's happening here, and you have a route that points to that controller with invoke that's just only doing one thing, and then you have a view over here, and it's using a form, which is then passing to that single action controller, right? Like and that's all fine. It all works great, and your tests are good, and that's fine. Like you're doing it exactly correct. It's not a problem, but you could get rid of that route. You could get rid of that single action controller. You could get rid of that other thing. You could get rid of that view. You could get rid of that form. You could do all of that with this little thing here. That's it. You don't have to write anything. All of that stuff is just all encapsulated in this one little Livewire component. And so he's like, oh, cool, great. I love that. And then I went back and looked at his code later, and he was still using the form. He was still using the form for some reason. I'm like, no, you don't have to use the form. You just say like on click, like dot prevent, and then submit, right? And then you have an action or a method called submit. Like, oh, that's even better. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's amazing. Like that's the whole thing. Like it's so nice to just be freed up from ever having to write any of that boilerplate stuff again. It's great. The one thing I have noticed, tests are good. Like tests are great. That's fine. When I get an error in Sentry, it's immensely harder to trace that, to figure out exactly where that's coming from or what's happening. If I see it in like Sentry and it's like traditional controller route, whatever, and maybe it's just because I'm not used to it. Maybe I'm just not used to reading the Livewire ones yet. Like I don't know where to look for it. Like it's in some payload data thing, blah, blah, blah. It's difficult for me to find what's happening. So like I just saw the other day, like next action is not defined. I'm like, I know that's mine. Next action is mine, but I don't know where to tell where it's getting missed. I can't find it. Like it's just somewhere in there. So I'm still working on that part. That's the only part I'm complaining about so far though. Everything else seems great, but that one is a little bit weird. And maybe I just need to talk to Caleb about that. But it almost feels like when you're trying to debug like a JavaScript thing without source maps. It's kind of what it feels like. Like there's an error in this line. It's like, well, that's a really freaking long line. Like if I just had a source map that pointed exactly to the spot, like that would be great. And that's what I feel like with Livewire. I'm like, I don't know exactly where that's happening. Like give me a line number. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Definitely.
Hey, I do have a couple other things I wanted to talk about today.
Sure.
So again, congrats on the new job. Really stoked for you. Glad that things are going well.
Yeah.
We are at 32, so I've got a couple options to talk about. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you one thing. I got working a couple days ago. I think it was yesterday. It was just for like a fun little thing. Got a Raspberry Pi 4 and set up Piehole on my local network. Do you know what Piehole is?
I do. I use Piehole. It is very handy.
Do you?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think you know what? You might have been one of the first people to talk to me about it.
Possibly.
Or maybe I mentioned it to you and you were like, oh yeah, we have that. So I set it up yesterday and it was really fun actually. So got the Raspberry Pi up and then, set a static IP for it. And I'm realizing now that I need to take like a networking class. There is a lot of stuff I don't know. Like I know what DHCP is, I know what DNS is, but like layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, like switches, different sorts of stuff like that, like subnets, don't know what that stuff is.
Like that. So I know very conceptually and at a high level about that kind of stuff, and I would know where to go to sort of figure things out, but I wouldn't be able to explain it, teach it, recall it without Google and that kind of stuff. VLANs are probably more complicated than what you need for a home situation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In most instances, a lot of like the Piehole thing, I've just got it running on my my Nook as a Docker container, and I just use that. I point all of my.
What is a Nook? Is that like what is that?
It's an Intel Nook. It's like a little PC. Like it's the
Oh,
size
okay.
of like an Apple TV. It's basically that size, right?
Cool.
And
Yeah.
so it's got like a proper Intel CPU in it, and it's got like, you know, I've had that for a while, but I just run Docker containers on that, so I've got different things running on there, but Piehole is one of them. And so I just tell my router, when you give out a DHCP lease, that the DNS server should point to the Piehole, and the Piehole then
Yep.
handles DNS for my whole network, and then that
Exactly
upstreams to
same.
my internet provider.
Yep. I have it right. I have mine upstreaming to like 1.1.1.1, like Cloudflare's DNS.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been cool. So like I noticed like, so I've had of all of the queries in the last, which I've got 29 clients on my home network, which is insane. Like I can't imagine I have 29 clients. Like I need to go look at what all those are. Would have had almost 26,000 requests in the last day, and 9% of those have been blocked. The one thing that I love is that on my Roku TV, when I go over where the ads normally would be, now there's nothing there,
Yeah, no,
which is amazing. Yeah. Like there was always such ridiculous ads on there. It's like, dude, this is my TV. Like, will you quit pushing ads in there already, please? Like, and they're just ridiculous. Like stuff that like really wasn't appropriate for my kids. I can't remember.
Yeah.
There'd be like creepy stuff on there sometimes, like Halloween time, like vampires and stuff. My like 3-year-olds like just trying to watch Disney Plus. You know, it's like, or like my 600-pound life or something like that, and like some person with like no shirt on. Like, okay, like my kids are like, what in the world is going on this TV?
The biggest issue that we had with the Piehole is that it stops a lot of the in-game ads in like the freemium ads. And
sure.
Ree came to me pretty quickly after I set Piehole up, and she's like, I don't get the ads anymore.
With my games?
Yeah, and like she would watch the ads
because you can get like free coins and stuff, right?
Free coins and stuff. So she'd be like, hey, without those ads, I can't get free coins. And I'm like, okay. But it was funny because I was using Duolingo to learn Polish, and I was at the gym one night, and I was just, you know, cooling down on the warming down on the treadmill. So I was walking pretty slowly and just thought, oh, I might sneak in a Duolingo here. And I didn't realize there were ads in Duolingo until I was on there. I'm like, what is this?
Oh, that's so funny. Because your home network had been blocking it. Oh, dude. See, I love it. I mean, it's so great. So great.
I mean, it doesn't stop like YouTube ads. So I had to eventually succumb and sign up for YouTube Premium, because Eli watches, we just put whatever on, but the ads are ridiculous now, and there's so many of them. Like when I'm holding Liv, like she'll have a nap, and so there's anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half where you just like sat there. So I've got the iPad, and I'll be watching like YouTube videos and things like that, and I got sick of seeing ads for a Chromebook, because it was like, no joke, every 2 minutes there was a Chromebook ad.
And don't you want a Chromebook? Like, hey, you want a Chromebook, don't you?
I really don't want a Chromebook. There was Chromebook and there was something else, and it was just like the same 2 ads over and over and over and over again. And I was like, right, that's it. YouTube Premium.
You're like, well, I'm either buying a Chromebook or I'm buying YouTube Premium. One of the two. Yeah, they've got me. They're going to annoy me so badly. Either way, Google's getting my money. You got it. That's so funny.
Alphabet's got my money. So yeah, it's really good. We use it for DNS as well. So I've got it set up such that certain domain names get sent to my Getflix, which is like it's a smart DNS provider, and so that is what I use to like access Hulu and things like that. So I would say, if I have a device on my network trying to go to Hulu.com, instead of using my provider, like my internet provider's DNS, go to this specific IP address, this specific DNS server in the United States, and then Hulu would see me as a subscriber in the United States, and so then I could access Hulu, because Hulu is not available here. So you're
a smart man. See, that's what I need. That's what I need
to send certain traffic to certain places.
I've got like there's one like Locast. Locast.org is like I'm sure you guys have this. Like you have like broadcast over the air television. Okay. I don't know if this is a global thing. I'm sure it's not, but like in the United States, I know they made a rule like a while ago or something that you had to be able to get like local programming in like HD or something like that, right? So they broadcast those over the air, and so you can get like just an antenna and get over the air channels, right? So you can watch like football games and stuff on Fox or CBS or whatever for free just by using an antenna. which is
Yeah.
great. But it's annoying to have an antenna up, right? Because sometimes I just
Yeah.
want to like stream it. And so there's this service called Locast, which
Mm-hmm.
will basically you put in which area you're in, and they will let you stream the channels from the over-the-air channels, whatever, for free, right?
Yeah.
It's a nonprofit. Well, now they've started like saying like annoying you every 15 minutes with ads that'll say like, hey, you should donate $5, which I'm happy to do. It's totally
Mm-hmm.
worth it. But I have to like set my location to be in Chicago because they don't have they don't have it yet for Bloomington, but
Mm-hmm.
Chicago is practically the same channels I would normally get anyway.
Yeah.
So I just have to like set my location to be Chicago. So I could probably do something similar to that. So instead of like having to spoof my browser to be like, yep, I'm in Chicago, I could probably say, if you're using locast.org, use this and use this proxy basically, something
Yeah.
like that. Interesting. That's very cool.
Mm.
Did not realize it was able to do that, but I will look into that. Let's see. Okay. You know what? Also, actually, we are at 40 minutes, so I'm going to say maybe two more things here. Number one, do you guys use GitHub at your new place? No.
I don't know.
GitLabs?
I asked when I wrote this thing yesterday because I wrote it on my local machine, obviously, using
Yeah.
Laravel Sail for the first time, which was nice.
Tell me about that again real quick, because I've not used that. Can you tell me about that real quick?
Laravel Sail is like the default now, I suppose, installation or development environment for Laravel, and it's a Docker based one. So
That's right.
it pulls in a Laravel flavored container that's got either PHP 7.4 or PHP 8. It's got MySQL set up. It's got Redis set up, memcached, and Mailhog, and all of this stuff is just ready to go. And so you hit
Nice.
localhost.
Dude, I love Mailhog.
It's
Mailhog's great.
It works very nicely. But yeah, so I did all the development locally, and then my boss is like, "All right, send me what you've done." And I'm like, "Where would you like me to git push this to?" And he was like, "Git push email@domain.com." I'm like, all right. So I deleted vendor and I deleted node modules and I zipped it up and I sent him the thing. So I don't know what we're using for Git. I assume we're using something. Although they do all of that development on a remote server, so I assume it's probably just like a bare Git repository on a server somewhere.
Dude, yeah. I mean, maybe you'll be the guy to bring the revolution of Git to them. I mean, because that's a very easy pitch. I mean, like to sell that to somebody. The transition wouldn't necessarily be easy, but all new things totally, like GitHub all the way, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, if not GitHub, get something like you got. I mean, like what do they mean using SVN? I mean, like something you got to have some sort of version control.
Sure, they're using Git, but they're not using like GitHub or GitLab. It's literally just a Git over SSH. Like this is the Git like in its truest form that existed before GitHub. So it's literally
sure, right, yeah.
You would just like
Git
SSH over SSH basically.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, that's a legit use of it, but also like, I mean, I'm supposing maybe they have cloud backups of that server or something like that, which is fine. But it's always like for me, having it in GitHub just feels like it's bulletproof, like it's never going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like I know that if my house burns down, like and if our business gets knocked out by a tornado and whatever or something, like that code's still at GitHub, replicated across servers in different regions and blah blah blah. So
yeah, there's some reservations around IP and things like that. So we will see.
Sure, that's fair. That's fair. Interesting. Okay, but the thing I was going to say about GitHub is I think they maybe silently, maybe not so silently, maybe I just missed the announcement, but I know GitLab has had this for a long time, this ability to auto merge once all the requirements have been fulfilled. So like, must be approved by another developer who didn't write the code and must have tests passing and must pass the style. It's whatever, right? All that stuff. Because what it's always been in the past, which has been super annoying.
Merge it once all of the pipelines succeed, essentially, which we've
had. You got
it,
exactly that. Right, exactly, forever. And so GitHub finally has that now, where it's like you can say auto merge, and it like click auto merge, and then it's been so nice. It's been so nice. My dog is looking at me. He wants to go outside. he is like, there's this bell by the back door, and he keeps looking at me like, I'm gonna ring it. I'm gonna ring it, and he'll go over there and he'll look at it, and then he'll look at me like, are you gonna make me ring it, or are you just gonna let me out? And so it's gonna be any second now. You'll probably hear ding 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 ding.
Gotta ring the bell, dude. Can't let you out without the bell.
He's like, the thing is, he's been out, like, this dog. He doesn't go out because he has to do anything. He just wants to go see if there's any squirrels by the back tree. Like, that's all he wants to do, or birds or anything. So like, he'll ring the bell, and then he's staring out the door, and then he gets all crazy and antsy. And you open the door, and he sprints out there. Yep, there it is. Hear it?
Yeah.
Hear the bell?
I heard the bell.
Yep. And
All
so
right.
he sprints
All
out.
right,
So he's
dude.
looking at
Gotta
me
go.
like, come on. He sprints out the door to go look and see if there's anything out there, and then walks back, and then waits at the door like, come on. And the thing is, it's like, it's like 3 degrees out. It's like,
Yeah, it's
dog,
light
I
and it's
promise you
cold.
don't go out. You don't
Yeah.
want to go out. It's pitch black out there. There's nothing out there. It's 3 degrees. Everything's sleeping. Quit ringing the bell. I'm going to go let him out. I'll be right back.
All right.
So that's auto merge on GitHub. There was other things I wanted to talk about, like Kafka. That's an interesting
That's
thing.
an Apache thing, isn't it? Apache Kafka?
It is. It's like by Apache, but it's like it's
the Apache Foundation.
Yes, correct. So that's interesting. I've been looking into that recently.
Why would you?
It's almost sort of like event sourcing in some ways. But you can have. It's really nice if you have multiple things that all need to be aware of items happening in other things, right? So instead of having to rely on API calls between microservices, you just push them all up to this Kafka thing, and then these events have subscribers, and the subscribers can listen to these feeds pretty much, and then they can react when they see different things in the feeds. And so, like, it's almost sort of like event sourcing, but it looks really interesting. So that was something I'm interested in talking to you about in the future at some point. And then the other thing
you need to know about Kafka in 10 minutes. There's a video on the website.
I watched that. It's really good. That's really good. You should watch that. That's a great explanation of it. So we should talk about that in the future. And then the other thing is SFTP transfers to S3. It's another thing I'm trying to do. Right now we have these SFTP files that come down, and it's amazing how many things rely on SFTP. Unbelievable. And thank God for Fly System. That SFTP is a driver.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what we would do if that wasn't the case. But right now we have a lot of stuff that downloads from SFTP, gets processed, and then gets pushed to S3. And I'm just sick of it. I just want it to be like a little. They have things that will do this, and actually, like Amazon has a service that will watch these for you. But I just want like a little cloud watcher that will go watch this SFTP bucket, and as soon as it sees something, it just sucks it over to an S3 bucket. The bigger challenge, however, is unzipping a zip that's in S3. That's the bigger thing that I'm working on. Like, how do I do that? And so there is ways to do it. I just got to figure it out.
We could stream the zip file, I guess.
You're so smart.
Possibly.
You knew. That's exactly what it is. I mean, like, that's the things that I've looked up. There's like limits on like the sizes of files that you can move around and whatever. But if you stream stuff, it doesn't matter. You never hit a limit. So you already know all of this stuff. You're way ahead of me. Okay, well, future topics, because we're at 15 minutes, and I think we should probably wrap this thing up.
Let's wrap it.
It's been good talking to you, man. It's just been good, like catching up. It's a good catch-up episode,
It's been good. Hopefully I'll have some more like actual developer-y type stuff. It's funny that, we went through this whole thing of being developers, and then we both became team leaders, and then you went and became even more managery, and I became even less managery. So we're back.
I'm good. I'm glad for you, man. I'm glad that you're not, like, seriously. And it's
you're glad that I'm not a manager. Yeah, great. Thanks. I appreciate that.
I am. I'm glad for you. I think you'll enjoy it more. I think, I'm not like,
nice.
I'm not.
It's definitely been nice.
Unhappy.
Every day this week at 4:30, I'm like, see you later. Laptop close, leave, study.
Yep. That is pretty freaking sweet. That's
and like,
exactly
I still talk, like, because
100%.
I've known my boss now for about 3 years. So, we still talk out of hours, and it's mostly about food. He has an Uber Eats addiction, or just a delivered food addiction. Doesn't matter what it is, just anything and everything. Just he doesn't cook. I don't think he knows how to cook.
That's funny. Here's what I'll say. You know what you might find, and this might be interesting because you know your boss. Well, you know your boss. Do you know like the head guy, like the top dude at this place?
Yeah. So
pretty
this
decently.
is
Okay.
the guy that owns the business basically.
So what you might find is that as you've been at this business over more time, you may find that you actually do have a little bit more interest in becoming more managerial-ish. And I think it's like your willingness to invest in a way outside of just like your preferred comfort zone or like what you like to work on is a little bit more if you're more closely tied with the people who run or own the business, right? Because you feel really good about contributing to their success as well. And you know that like, hey, I could be really helpful to the business or to this person if I was to help in this role. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I
And
kind of
if it feels
had
good,
that at
like
my
if you
last.
like the business, yeah.
I mean, I had that at my last one, and things kind of changed over time. So, but I definitely enjoyed having the role. It's just that not being able to program, which is still my passion.
Right.
Like
Right.
as of right
Yep.
now,
Yep.
I hope that I can program until I retire, and I hope that I can retire some extensive period of time before I die. Because that retirement age keeps getting pushed further and further out.
Sorry, I had to let that dog in. Stinking dog.
Yeah.
Now he's happy as a clam, just wagging his tail, dragging his bone around now, and he's got his wet, snowy feet all over my floor. Now he's just looking at me with the bone in his mouth like, what? You talking about me over here? He's a cute dog. Anyway, yeah, man, I'm stoked for you. I think that you're gonna have a lot of success and many happy years at this business. I'm really happy for you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, let's wrap it up there. This was episode 89. Thanks so much for sticking with us, folks. You can find show notes for this episode at North Meets South or North South. What is
North
crap?
Meets South.
I'm gonna forget it. Thank you. North Meets South audio/89. Hit us up on Twitter. Michael Dorinda, Jacob Bennett. If you don't know that by now. And then, of course, rate us up in your podcatcher of choice. That would be amazing. Thanks, everybody, for sticking with us. We are also on the cusp of, I think, grabbing a new sponsor for this coming year. So be looking out for that.
Beautiful.
If you'd like that to be you, you could also hit us up. We're looking, we're happy to entertain offers. So
in the meantime,
all right,
be
everybody,
sure to check out thenping.me, your hands-free schedule task monitoring solution for Laravel. If you use the code NMSPing, you will get 5% off our launch pricing for the first 3 months. So let me check that out. You can do that at thenping.me. It is a one-step install. You'll be up and running before you know it, and you will never have to worry about your Laravel schedule tasks going missing again.
And if you use code insert curse word blank filter, that beep thing here, you can get 100% off for life. Tune in next time to find out what that code is.
Nice one.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye all.